We've had technicians cut through load-bearing roof joists, vacuuming out a fireplace, and the bag blows and soot goes everywhere. We had 2 electricians on a job. All of a sudden, they smell smoke. There is a fire of the neighbor 2 houses down.
So I walked into this job thinking it would probably take a week, maybe a week and a half to change five heads, cassettes, okay? There was no service ports on anything. And so we had to open up walls to get to different flares, right? Just the obstacles and challenges. I thought that job was gonna take me a week to 10 days, okay? It took a month. Welcome to another episode of Cracking the Code with my host, Brad Barron. Brad, I'm super excited. This week, we're talking about unforeseen challenges. It happens all the time as business owners and operators, or just in businesses. You know, one thing that I would like to start and talk about is at Royalty, we just had a scenario or a situation where, imagine this, okay? You as the business owner,
Okay.
you come in, it's Monday morning,
Okay.
and you get a phone call from a competitor, someone that you don't really know, mom and pop shop.
Okay.
And all of a sudden you get a nice little message from them that your technician went and saw one of their yard signs,
Okay.
and took their yard sign and replaced
Oh
it with a Royalty yard sign.
No.
You
Wow.
know, that's a tough one to swallow, especially when you don't want to have that type of culture, or you don't teach that type of culture, right? So what I ended up doing was I brought in the technician. I talked to him. I said, hey, why did we do this? What's the why behind it, right?
Sure.
And he told me is every day for the last week, it's been in front of my house at this little across the street, and I look at it every single day, and it's been killing me.
Yeah.
That the next day I just said, you know what? No one's around, but there's always somebody watching because someone saw him do it.
Yep.
He took it, put it in his truck, put ours right there so he could look at ours, got the phone call. Now, as the business owner, I wanted to reach out to her and not just talk to her, you know, behind the phone. I personally went out there face to face to their business, and I apologized in person.
Attaboy.
I didn't bring the technician out there with me, but then I also paid and offered 500 yard signs.
Yeah. Oh,
because,
wow.
Yeah, 500 yard signs.
500 yard signs. Yeah.
500 yard signs. And the reason why I wanted to do that was I wanted them to know how, like, really sorry I was that was to happen. Okay.
Yeah.
But then also, I get our yard signs taken quite a bit because the community, they just take them when you just drop them off at random places.
Sure.
I didn't want to be pinpointed as the company that takes yard signs. So I figured if I bought them a bunch of yard signs, they're not going to say I'm stealing my own yard signs again. Right. So I wanted to make sure that we were on good base when I left their company. And so that was one of those unforeseen challenges, right? A little speed bump in the road. Now, moving forward, he knows not to do that. He understands why we wouldn't do that.
Absolutely.
And it's just one of those learning moments, right? What's one of those unforeseen moments that you might have got at Barron?
Yeah, you know, I've been here 10 years and we really haven't had any. It's been smooth sailing, right? Just nice and easy.
Make me sound horrible. Everyone watching this podcast just goes, Royalty?
Yeah.
Check. Nope.
And also, obviously, I am super humble as well. So, yeah, right. They just go neck and neck. But no, man, I think it was probably episode 1. We talked about how many scars, like those invisible scars we have as business owners, the things that, whether it's a self-inflicted issue or a team member issue, which, by the way, usually boils down to communication and training issues, right? Like we haven't communicated expectations. We haven't trained on what it is that we really want people to be doing and how we want them to hold themselves. And you know, people make dumb mistakes. I'm really glad. It was really cool to hear from you how you handled that. Because to me, you led by example. You showed your technician that it wasn't wrong, but you didn't go throw him on the stake, right, in front of the entire company. You went and you led by example. You showed him this is how we handle when we make a mistake. You use the word why, love that. You let them know why we wouldn't want to do that. What are the implications and ramifications? And ultimately, as a result, I think you're going to have someone that never does that again. And obviously, you're going to have a culture that really embodies how royalty presents themselves to your coworkers, your customers, and your community. So kudos to you. Before I dove into my stories, I just wanted to say, nice job, Jason. I don't know if anyone or everyone would have handled it that same way. And I think that was handled really well. But man, like I could go down so many avenues. I could go down the people avenues. I could go down the processes avenues. I could go down, sales avenues, but I'll start with people because I think that at the end of the day, businesses are beautiful because people are beautiful. And that means that they are smart and messy at the same time, right? Like we are fallen people, right? We make mistakes. For me personally, by the grace of God, I'm forgiven for those mistakes, but at the end of the day, they happen. And so hiring people, growing people at Barron, when we're scaling from 75 people to 175 people, right? When we're adding 100 positions over the last, decade or so, there's a lot of mistakes or unforeseen challenges that have risen as a result of that. I think back when we launched our electrical department, so this was the first trade vertical at Barron that we added. Instead of thinking through how I wanted to do that, I said, well, the demand's there. Our customers are asking for electricians. Let's just go hire electricians. And then as a result, I'm sure we'll find people that will rise up and be leaders, right? So we hired a guy, I'm not going to say the name of the gentleman, but he was a commercial electrician. So in Washington, we have both residential and commercial licensure, but we needed a commercial license to be able to do both commercial and residential work. So I hired a guy and he came strictly out of the commercial space. And in the interview process, when I asked him, because we're 90% resi at Barron, right? Like we're a very residential focused company, but we want to keep growing commercial. So about 10% of what we do is like commercial. But I asked this guy, I said, hey, in the interview process, I was with my director of ops at the time. I said, hey, we're looking to grow electrical, but right now the majority of the opportunities are going to be residential. And I should have picked up on this, but his body language, you could tell immediately was a little bit like, maybe that's not my jam, but he was looking for a job. He was looking for obviously a bigger paycheck, different opportunity. And so he said, yeah, that doesn't bother me, right? No problem. Fast forward to his onboarding, again, talking about the different work that we do, primarily residential, and day 3 rolls along. So this is Wednesday of his first week, right? We have an apprentice with him. And I get a call, right? And it's from him. And he's like, hey, Brad. And I'm like, what's up? I remember I was standing out front of the Barron facility. And he's like, and I'm not going to use profanity here, so I'll just say beep for the profanity. But direct quote, he goes, you know what? I'm tired of this residential beep. I'm out. Hung up the phone. So like newly hired commercial electrician, was meant to be able to help grow an apprentice, like lead the charge. And on day 3, he's gone. So what lessons did I learn from that, right? At the end of the day, when Barron looked in the future to scale into different trade verticals, right? We wanted to make sure that we found the right leaders first. People matter, and leadership is a hard skill to be able to learn and grow, but also some of it is like God-given innate talents and strengths, right? Like some people I believe are built and made to be able to be leaders, right? And so we pivoted how we hired from that moment on as we expanded into solar and then plumbing and then sewers and all the different things we've done, in that we go and we find leaders first. Because I don't want another person to call me and say, Brad, I'm tired of this residential beep, right? Like I don't want that to be a story. And luckily, we've been blessed to not have that challenge moving forward. So people can be a big, again, win for the company if done right, or ultimately can be a challenge that ejects after 3 days. So what about you? I know you've been around for a couple of years and you're still in the scaling mode. I'd have to imagine you have some people stories. So.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just a big one, as you're developing your team and you're growing, right? You get ways to fund. Okay. When I talk about funding, I'm talking about financing.
Absolutely.
And so I brought on a new accounting person for my accounting department that took care of our finances and financing and everything like that. And I could imagine it just right now like it was yesterday. And you guys will understand when I say this, okay? So I picked out 4 plans, okay? And I said, okay, these are our 4 plans. When we do financing, this is what we're going to offer. And so the very first client that we offered financing for, what happened, I don't know. I was out of town on an on-site and I'm not sure, but the finance wasn't closed in-house. Okay. So what my financing department did was we signed the contract for the install, but they sent the application via email. And what happened was attached to that email was all of our financing options.
Sure. Like a link or whatever. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And so out of these options, because we didn't pick the 4 that I picked, it gave the client any option to choose any of them. So their eye goes straight to what? Not the 2 years 0%, not the 5 years 0%. No, Brad, we're talking about 7 years 0%. It wasn't like it was like a $10,000 install, right? No, this was a $28,000 install. I was getting hit on a 28 merchant fee on that.
Oh my gosh.
We had great profit in the job until that happened.
Oh yeah. No.
And so that's one of those learning experiences, right? But again, understanding as a team, why did it happen? There's a little chink in the communication, but you also have to learn from these mistakes, right? You can't just brush them under the rug and just think they don't happen again. It's, hey, why did this happen again? How are we going to execute it so it doesn't happen again in the future?
Yeah. No, I think learning from mistakes and not having shame in it is really powerful, right? I know we've talked, before in this podcast about what shame can do to people, and that when we share, I think, transparently and humbly, that we grow and we help others grow at the same time. When I first started at Barron, I wore the hat of business development manager, right? And so really, I know I shared earlier, the goal was to get to understand the different facets of the company. One thing that I didn't share previously is one of my jobs that I self-asked for, raise my hand, was to tackle and take all of the customer experience challenge calls that we got. So that was whether it was an issue with a technician in the field, a driving issue, or whatever the case may be. And man, that was one of the most humbling experiences I've ever had. But it was also just a really good way to learn about what the gaps were in the company and the things that we weren't doing right. A couple findings from that, I'll say. And again, these obviously, anytime you get a call is an unforeseen challenge, right? You're getting a call about something that either you or the team weren't aware about. And luckily, we're not talking about hundreds of calls here, Jason, but we're definitely talking about dozens of calls. And when we at Barron, in a given year, we'll do, 10,000 plus visits in a house to different houses, right? So that's a lot of opportunity to crush it. And also a lot of opportunity to mess up, right, to step in it, right? But one thing that I there was patterns that emerged from that when I was taking those calls. And my gut would tell me is that other contractors have experienced these patterns, but usually challenges arise from one of 3 different things. The first is communication, right? Like just simply a lack of communication, right? And that's usually number 1. We did not communicate well enough. Tied to it, but the second is we didn't set proper expectations. So yeah, it's a communication thing, but we didn't set proper expectations. One great example of that in Washington State, a lot of our houses up here were not built for air conditioning. They were not built for air conditioning. Down in your neck of the woods, right? Like every house has air conditioning. Up here, within the last decade and a half, is really when air conditioning has become less of a luxury and more of a necessity, at least during, a couple months of the year. And so with all that being said, when a salesperson goes out and they don't communicate clearly that unless they do some pretty skookum zoning or even a separate system in the upper floor, The upstairs and the downstairs, they're not going to be the same temperature, right? Like it's not going to happen. There's ways to make it work, but your basic $15,000, $16,000, $18,000 system, right? That's a heating and cooling system is not going to do that, right? And so I'd get calls from customers that are like, hey, I just spent 15 grand with Barron and I don't have cooling upstairs, or it's 10 degrees hotter. And so those are the things that can really come back to bite you. And so setting expectations is another way, or lack of setting expectations is another way to generate those unforeseen circumstances. And then the third, and I think you can appreciate this given the fact that you spent a lot of years selling and now you train as a sales trainer, is that when we walk into a home as a technician, electrician, and plumber, we need to understand, especially in service, that that customer is scared. Like they don't know how much it's going to cost. They don't know if it's going to, damage their home. There's all these different things that are going on. And when we don't meet them where they're at and we're not able to connect, build trust, empathize, it leads to unforeseen challenges and customer experience issues. So those are my big three takeaways, right? Lack of communication, not setting expectations correctly. And again, not meeting customers where they're at and understanding that they are in a position where they don't know what's going to happen and they're scared. So how do we be that person to come alongside of them and walk them through the process? What about in your world, Royalty? Do you feel like that's similar? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy here, but those three seem to be really primary drivers of challenges.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I got to ask you another question. Brad, has your ego ever got in the way of you maybe buying a job from a competitor, or maybe your competitors couldn't do something and your ego just got in the way? I mean, is this just me?
No. I mean, I think that all those things exist, right? What did you say earlier in a previous episode?
Your ego is not your amigo, and I'm going to tell you a story on that.
Okay, well, I here's the thing. I'm going to kick it back to you, but I will say this. I think as, hot-blooded, men, we have a tendency sometimes to be more naturally prone to leaning into the ego. Every day you have to check yourself, right? Humble yourself, understand what your goal is, what your mission is, how it ties into your coworkers, your customers, the community that you serve. But I want to hear the story. You have got me perplexed. I'm excited.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Let's go, Jason. Story time.
So I went to a call and multiple big outfits in my market, I'm not going to mention any names, all gave estimates, didn't give estimates, actually walked out of the call without giving estimates because all of them walked away from it saying that they couldn't do it. Okay. So I roll up to this house, and let me picture the house for you all. It's not a house. It's more of a building, skyscraper building per se.
Okay.
And so it's probably, 15, 20 stories high. And on the top level, okay, we have right by the A Stadium in downtown Sac where they're playing, we had a branch box system that was on 3 levels. And what happened was this house wasn't even old. Okay. It was maybe 3-year-old house.
Okay.
But what happened was all the flares on the unit ended up not working. So what happened was their system ended up failing on them. And the lady didn't like it. It was a big ordeal. And so I stepped in and I said, you know what? These other companies said that they wouldn't do it. I'll go ahead and do it. So let me talk to you about the worst nightmare story of a business, okay, or an owner, okay? The owners were great, okay? Nothing against the owner. It's just the job. So I walked into this job thinking it would probably take a week, maybe a week and a half to change five heads, cassettes. Okay. Also with the cassettes, 2 branch boxes, 3 branch boxes, 1 on each level.
Okay.
And there was no service ports on anything.
Oh, wow.
And so we had to open up walls to get to different flares, right? And open up sheetrock, which I put on the agreement. We weren't responsible for open sheetrock or anything like that. So that was okay. But just the obstacles and challenges, I thought that job was going to take me a week to 10 days. Okay. It took a month.
Oh, wow.
I had my install crew probably tied up for a month. Now, luckily, I sold it for a decent amount, okay? But I wasn't profitable. I probably lost, no joke, probably close to $12,000 of a learning experience, right?
Yeah, right.
And the thing that I was telling my team too, as they were frustrated as well with all the obstacles and challenges was, hey, you guys, at this point, we have to understand that this is all a learning curve right now for us, okay? This is something that we're going to use, and don't look at it as we're losing money. I'm looking at it and I took on this job and I'm investing in it because no one else in our market's willing to touch something like this. And if we're willing to do this and learn and still execute, what does the future hold for us, right? Yeah. So that was kind of my mindset, I guess, of what I was thinking. But man, let me tell you, as a business owner and an operator, it hurt.
Yeah.
It hurt.
I was blessed to be able to have an opportunity to go to a 4-year college and get an engineering degree. But I always tell people that as a business owner and the mistakes that have been made, whether they be self-inflicted or not, that is the most expensive education I've ever had. It far exceeded.
Typically, they're self-inflicted, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Well, and by the way, as leaders too, we always have to understand that at the end of the day, the buck stops with us, right? That doesn't mean we don't have accountability measures in place to be able to coach and grow our other leaders or other team members. But at the end of the day, I might be the CEO of a company that supports 175 people, but my name is on the building, and it is my job to take ownership and then create training and solutions to be able to overcome those challenges. And it's also our job to shepherd and steward that culture as well, a culture of humility and a culture of learning and making sure that, our teammates are set up for success. One of the most probably humbling experiences I've had with people, and I would maybe say in business, when Barron was growing and we had just added our third trade, vertical plumbing, so we've gone to HVAC, electrical plumbing, I was in the process of trying to figure out how to give myself capacity to be the CEO by having a strong, we call it an executive support team, right? So an executive team to be able to help essentially manage the middle managers. So it'd be like leaders leading other leaders, right? And so I created a directorship group of people at Barron to be able to occupy, director of ops or install hat, director of service hat, director of people ops hat, et cetera, right, across the board. And I remember going through the process, and I got to the hiring of my director of service, and I'm not going to name names or use names at all. But I remember the interview process, and at Barron, one of the things that we really preach is that when a new leader comes on, especially if they're not like promoted, right, within the company, they have to first earn trust, right? That's like step one to growing culture. Then they have to make sure that their team understands the why behind the initiatives. And then at the end of the day, we have to give our team the tools and training to be successful. And then we track. And I mentioned some of this in an earlier episode, right, of cracking the code. But what I found in the interview process is this individual was very much about KPI, right? He was very driven by KPI, and he spoke highly of his previous performance and that he was able to, use my team, that kind of language. But he also came very highly referred by a couple of people that I trusted. And so I made the decision to hire him, even though there were flags, right? I had some yellow flags there. He did interview well, other than a couple of those flags. So fast forward, right? And about 6 months in, I've been working with this gentleman and coaching him. And I keep getting pings from people operations, my HR team, that the team he was managing, the service group, was just not happy, right? And they felt that they weren't supported, and they felt like there was immense pressure on them. And so I started to do some due diligence and found out that he just kept jumping to the end and creating scorecards off items that he hadn't even taught the team what they were and what they meant and the why behind them. And so I began coaching this person, saying, hey, we got to go back to square one. Like, have you done ride-alongs? No, haven't done them yet.
So important.
Get some windshield time, right? Have you got engagement from them and asked them their understanding of the why, right, behind the different initiatives that you're proposing. Yeah, I could probably do a better job anyway. So over and over and over again. And I waited another year before finally terminating this person. So it was the first time I've had to terminate an executive level teammate from Barron. So there's a lot of learning in that too. But what I found, I'm not kidding, the day after the termination, one of my senior HVAC service techs came in and he said, Brad, I just want you to know that your decision saved about a third of your HVAC service techs because we were about to walk.
Wow.
That would have been over 10 people walking out the door at the same time to our competitors. So I was like 3 weeks from losing a third of my technicians. The lesson in there is that there are unforeseen obstacles, right? Things that are going to be challenging. But also, I believe that you need to understand who you are, the type of people you're hiring, and have conviction when you see those flags. Because usually our gut is pretty accurate. It's pretty right. And I was that close to having a very different looking service division than I have today. All because I allowed someone to be on the team a lot longer than they should have been. Great guy, family person, wrong fit for the role, right? And we need to be so protective of the culture.
I think that's important, right? Is some people hang on too long, right? To different employees, and maybe they have different relationships. They've known them for a while, or family, right? In smaller startup companies.
Oh yeah.
When do you understand that it's time to let somebody go?
I think the team tells you. And by that, I mean, I think there's enough.
I like that. Yep. I agree.
I think the team, one of the things that I've started to implement as a tool to help prevent those unforeseen challenges is a proactive 360-degree review. And so I do this with both high-performing managers and not, so all across the board. And I have a questionnaire, anonymous questionnaire that goes out. And I ask them a lot of different questions, right, about how they feel supported, leadership, et cetera. And I have made since then one other leadership team decision to terminate a leader. And it was based on the team essentially telling me through that review that they're not happy and here's why. And I did some more due diligence and ended up making the call. And so waiting to not have that crucial conversation can cost you a lot more than you think. So I look to the team. I want to hear from them. I want to get a gauge of what's going on. And like I said, this leader, I actually ended up having 3 different meetings with my COO. And this is a different person that we ended up having to let go. And he was a manager in the company, and 3 of our key people in our install department. And after the 3rd interview with that person, at the end of the day, I brought the leader in and let them go that day because it was that obvious and apparent we needed to make a shift. And so hire smart, fire fast, but make sure you do it with data and with team input. Those would be my recommendations. So
now, when you do those reviews and the teams put in that information, right? How often are you doing that? Are you doing it quarterly, every 6 months? How often is that being handled? And then I could only imagine that as a leader, even your leadership team, right? They probably got to swallow and be humble pie, right?
Well, I have one done on me too. So it's like, I'm not kidding. I have my leadership team 360 to review me, right? Like right back. I want to know what my gaps are. What are the, I call them blind spots, right? Sometimes we, as people, we're going, and we don't even understand our own blind spots, the areas that we're falling short.
Yep.
And I think it's a mindset shift, right? Like if you approach, your gaps as learning opportunities, growth opportunities. I like to say have an insatiable hunger for learning, have a desire to learn how to learn. Like those are all really important things. And I don't want leaders on my team, including myself, that aren't willing to roll up their sleeves and say, I'm okay. I want people to tell me. Hopefully, I say, speak truth with tact, right? Like make sure you speak it with tact. I also think I shared earlier, I believe clear is kind, right? And this is a way to be clear and a way to be kind. But they help prevent those unforeseen circumstances, right? They help prevent the challenges when we're able to proactively get ahead of that. What about you and the royalty side of things? Are there certain things that you do? We do ours every 6 months. That's what I found to be a good cadence. Quarterly was a lot, right? That's just a lot of input because it takes time, right? These aren't short little 3-question reviews. There's 25 questions that are in this review.
So as of right now, we do quarterly reviews as performance. Okay. But I have not done the overall view of the company yet, but this is something that we're talking about as we were talking about burnout last episode, right? It had me really start thinking of what is it, talking about humble pie, me as a leader, I can see where we are missing opportunity and where we are failing because of me as a leader, right?
Right.
But I also, like you said, you got blinders and spots that maybe I don't see, that maybe the other teammates on our team can see, that they can point out. So I haven't done any questions or anything formal with the team yet, but I would love for you to send me over what you guys have, because any type of feedback from my team just elevates us to help us get to the next level, right? But you got to be humble. And I think that's probably the most challenging thing for everyone, is to be able to go through these reviews, okay? Yeah. And not take it personal as an attack. Okay. And I think that's where a lot of leaders fail, is they think they're being attacked, but understand and take it in and dissect it and understand that there's reasons why they're seeing this type of stuff. Okay. And give them a different opportunity.
Yeah, we, and this goes as across the board with anyone looking to be in a leadership role, but we can't take things personally, right? That doesn't mean that we shouldn't expect tactful and respectful responses. I think culturally that's important. I don't want to see on a 360-degree review, Brad's a bleep and he's terrible and blah. Is that even constructive? If you feel that way, I hope you come into my office and shut the door so we could have a conversation about that, because there's probably a misunderstanding. But like I said, speak tact, with truth, and be willing to have and receive feedback is crucial. And I think it's something that needs to be addressed in companies if there isn't a review process like that. We do quarterly reviews of team members. So those are performance-based reviews. Yeah. One of those reviews we do is given more of it's the beginning of the year. It's like an in-depth goal setting type of a review. And I also believe in personal and professional goals being melded. I've talked about this in some of the other, shows I've been on and some of the other teachings I've done. But, at the end of the day, when we get a chance to lead by example and we get a chance to show people that we can take feedback, then the team is going to rise up and respond in a similar fashion. That's my belief.
I agree 100%. No, Alice, we're rolling and we're changing real quick. I know that there's been unforeseen challenges with clients. Okay.
Sure.
What are some unforeseen challenges that pop up where a client's called in or a situation's happened?
Yeah, it's interesting. We were just talking about this with my leadership team. We have a monthly meeting. It was 2 weeks ago. We do it. I think it's the second Tuesday, of every month. Our whole leadership team comes together, and I think it probably has to do with the economy that we're in right now. As we know, we talked about this. It's a different economy than during the booming COVID days, right? There's less leads going around. People are more conservative with their money, right? There's maybe more fear in those larger ticket item purchases. And that's not specific to HVAC, electrical, plumbing. That's anything that's financed, right? And so one thing that we've been seeing more of is customers, when there's an issue with a system. We just had one recently with a generator where one of the parts on a 2-year generator failed. The generator was under warranty. And then the customer comes back and they say, well, it failed. We want a brand new generator. And it's like, generator is, for us, it's a $20,000+ install, right? You're like, you want a it's under warranty. We have the part. We can fix it tomorrow. what do you mean you want a new generator? And I think that one of the things that we're starting to see more of in this world of instant gratification of the Amazon experience, where you buy a retail product, right? And then if you don't like it, you can send it back, no questions asked. You go to Costco, you can buy, a retail product and then use the product and then take it back and say, I just didn't like that product, right? In service contracting, right, what we do, like that isn't the standard. There are warranties for a reason because of the fact that we want to protect the customer, protect the equipment. And so we've been navigating some interesting customer experience challenges where there's a challenge with the part. We go through the manufacturer warranty process. And then at the end of the day, the customer's like, nope, I want a brand new system. And how do you de-escalate that one, right? And so you have to draw a line. You have to understand what you're willing to do and not do. Just like in sales, you have to give them options, like we can do this for you or this for you, right? Don't tell them what they can't do. Tell them what you can do, right? And those types of things. But those have been popping up more. And I think it's a combination of this instant gratification return world that we live in that is retail based, that's not contracting based. Yet because we sell equipment, customers expect contractors to just swap it out, and
because it's that easy, right, Brad? Let's just swap it out.
And again, there's an education of like, that's just not how our system or how the industry and the system process works, right? That's just not how it works. So, we'll have those ones. I would say we have a 100% customer satisfaction guarantee at Barron. In my 10 years here at Barron, only twice have we either completely taken a system out and given money back. It has happened twice. But we do hold true to that. We obviously try to make sure that doesn't happen. But, and sometimes it's for the betterment of the company. I'll share this, and I'm sure you can relate. It is okay for contractors to fire customers. It is okay.
100%.
But I think that's something that people get caught up in, thinking that, oh my gosh, I can't lose that revenue stream. There's a reason why Service Titan, right, or that's what we're on, has a do not service tag, right? Like sometimes you got to use it, right? And that also helps control unforeseen circumstances. Because if you got a customer that's berating you or your technicians, you got a customer that refuses to pay or is ticky-tacky, contractors need to know that they can tactfully, professionally fire customers. Have you ever fired a customer before?
Yeah. I mean, I was going to relate this story. So as a professional in the sales, being a comfort advisor, even at Royalty, I teach my team also, not everyone is a great fit maybe for Royalty, and that's okay. We got to understand that that's okay. And so when I go, so there's only so many opportunities of installs that I have per week. Okay. If we do 2 installs a day, 6 days a week, that's 12 opportunities. And I live and if you take that by 4 weeks, right, that's 12, 24, 48 installs. So what does that mean? That means I live in a community of 100 and something thousand people, and I could only take on a certain amount of people. So I think that I also have to be selfish. And when I'm sitting there and I'm in my, engineering a new system for them, I'm also interviewing them to see if they're a right fit for my company or for me, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that's 100% okay to do. I'm not talking about prejudging, right?
No.
I'm talking about asking the questions and gathering the facts and coming up with the conclusion.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think there's tactful ways that you can do that too in the home, and offering, solutions that, are maybe they're very price conscious. Propose the right solution. And if they choose to go with someone else, know that your proposal was what should have been done. And you can rest easy knowing that they didn't want to go the right route, right? Because by the way, that'll also lead to customer experience challenges. If a cheap system is going to create high static in a house, guess what's going to happen years down the road? It's going to be challenges, right? So if you don't address the static, even if it costs $2,000 more, they're not really looking at the whole home performance, right? They're looking at just the box swapping. And I know you guys speak the same language at Royalty as we do at Barron. We're not box swappers. We're performance-based contractors. Yes. So, and if you're going to be performance-based, you're going to solve a lot of challenges that might have reared their ugly head months or years down the road.
I have a client story that I would like to share real quick.
Okay.
Unforeseen challenges are obstacles. Okay. So things happen at installs, and this was probably year one, probably one of our first or second installs. And what happened was we were doing a cutout on one of the supplies. And what I usually do is we teach our installers when they're doing a cutout on a supply, we have a box, we have a vacuum, we make sure that any residual falls, it's in a box, it's all enclosed. There's not a bunch of dust and dirt everywhere. Well, what happened was the individual was cutting for some reason from the attic, and no one was down there to catch it. And what happened was that drywall that we just cut, where do you think it landed?
Oh, no.
On their TV. Okay?
Oh, no.
And so when I heard that, my installer called me and said, hey, we got a problem. Sheetrock fell on this guy's TV and it's a broken TV. And I'm like, all right, well, what's the size of the TV? He's like, it's like a 67-inch TV, 62-inch. And I was like, or 65-inch. I was like, okay. Well, my mindset, TVs aren't that expensive anymore, right?
No.
I just bought a 100-inch TV for $1,000 on Black Friday. So I'm like, all right, well, that's not a big loss. Well, no, you know what this TV had to be? It had to be like the ultralight TV, 67 inches, and it was like a $3,000 TV. So again, what I had to do was let my team know that, hey, as a new startup company and operations, things like this could completely deplete a new startup company.
Oh, totally.
So what we have to do is we have to identify and we have to understand that it is our job and our mission to keep their castle and their kingdom clean. Okay. I don't care what you guys do at your house or what your house looks like, but when we're inside our clients' houses, our goal and our mission is to leave cleaner than what we walked into, to the point where if I go to the job walk at the end, and I still see trash or anything, not trash, but like little pieces of, whatever, or I feel like their house is a little bit dirty,
right,
I will offer to get their house clean for them. I say, hey, one of our guarantees here is X, Y, and Z. What that means is that we'll pay for a professional cleaning company to clean up to your standards. I know that this was a really big job, and I know that you probably want to come in and to something nice and fresh. So why don't we have someone come in the following day and do a full cleanup of your house? Yeah. Right? And that's the level of expertise and professionalism that we deliver every single time. Where the other day, I was at an install, and it was a much larger install. Our guys were there probably 9 o'clock, but they weren't probably going to get done until about 10:30.
Yep.
And I had an earlier conversation with them around probably 7 o'clock. And I was there and I said, hey, with you having small kids and everything, what I would like to do is, with it being a later night install, I would really like to provide you and your family to go stay in a hotel on us. Right?
Oh, nice.
Because I want them to enjoy the process.
Sure.
I want them to go tell somebody about it. Because if I could have them tell someone about it, what do you mean that experience is to them? Right?
Oh, man, I love that. That is so cool. You gave me goosebumps again, Jason. I love that. Look at you.
I'm good at giving you goosebumps, Brad.
You are. You are. There's the wink. No, I mean, man, I could list, and I won't go into all the details, but I mean, we've had technicians cut through load-bearing roof joists. We've had technicians be vacuuming out a fireplace and the bag blows and soot goes everywhere. And of course, it's white carpet and white, furniture. We've had, knocked off chimney vent. I mean, I could go backed into like the 3rd generation marble Cupid statue because we weren't paying attention in a round driveway with a box truck. I mean, I could go on and on. Accidentally left the gate open, so their 2 dogs got out and ran away. Yeah. And the technicians had to go find them. I will say this, we did have, this was a couple years ago, sort of a cool hero story. And maybe I'll end with this one because it was unforeseen, but it ended really well.
Love it. Let's go.
We had 2 electricians on a job in a neighborhood in the Bellingham area up here. And all of a sudden, they smell smoke. And it's coming from 2 houses down. And there is a fire coming out of the upstairs of the neighbor 2 houses down. They go drop everything, run in. The door's locked, kick the door down, and there is a lady passed out on the bottom floor of a house that is in the process of burning down. They pull her out. I'm not kidding. Save her life, call 911, and they only keep it so the upstairs of the portion of the house burnt down versus the whole house. If they would not have been there, the house would have burnt down. And they were in the Bellingham Herald, our main paper, as heroes for running over and helping this lady that had passed out unconscious on the bottom floor of her house with the top stairs bedroom on fire, right? That's an unforeseen circumstance. We ended up saving a life and ended up saving a house, right, as a result of it. But sometimes we can be the heroes too when it comes to things like that. So,
you know, Brad, as we're ending the episode of Cracking the Code, what are some things that we highlighted in this episode?
We didn't talk about much over 45 minutes, right? Just all these mistakes that we've made, the pain,
all
the
the
scars.
mistakes. We're being very open and transparent, right?
Yeah. Well, I think if I hit a couple off the top of my head, one, understand that unforeseen circumstances are going to happen, challenges are going to happen. And at the end of the day, if we can approach them with the right mindset, a humble mindset, a learning mindset, and be willing to take care of our team and our customers, will be successful. And I think to be proactive too, like be willing to identify and ask the questions on where is communication breaking down, where are processes that have gaps, right? Identify those things so that when you do get, to a point where you're scaling your business, you've hopefully solved challenges before they even arise. Those would be two big ones for me. So, what about you, Jason? I'll throw it back to you.
The unforeseen challenges of just how to go through day by day, having the understanding that things might turn a little left, it might not be it might not be straight and narrow, but at the end of the day, it's how you go about it and how you bring those problems and situations to results, and results go so much further. So until next time of Cracking the Code, signing off.